Hello, welcome to Capital Sensei. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most important concepts in the world of business and investing: competitive strategy, as laid out by the brilliant Michael Porter. We'll explore his famous 5 forces model, which helps us understand the profitability of any industry. And then we'll break down the 3 fundamental strategies a company can use to succeed and build a lasting advantage. Whenever we can, we answer questions in the comments. This framework can seem a bit abstract at first, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts, ask questions about specific companies, or tell us about your own business experiences. The more we share, the more we all learn, creating a community that helps each other make sense of the economic world. So let's start with the basics. Who is this Michael Porter, and why should you, as an investor or just someone curious about how money is made, care about his ideas from decades ago? Porter is a professor at Harvard Business School, and he's basically the godfather of modern business strategy. Before him, people talked about strategy in very vague terms. He came along in 1979 and 1980 with his work and gave us a concrete, powerful framework. He answered 2 fundamental questions that every investor should be asking. First, why are some industries as a whole consistently more profitable than others? Think about it. Why has it historically been more profitable to be in the software business than in the airline business? It's not just luck. There are underlying economic structures at play. The second question is, within a given industry, why are some companies wildly successful while others struggle and fail? Porter gave us the tools to dissect these questions. Let's start with his first major contribution, the 5 forces framework. This is the tool we use to answer that first question about industry profitability. Imagine you're thinking of opening a business, say a coffee shop. The 5 forces are like a P-flight checklist that tells you how turbulent the skies are in the coffee shop industry. They determine the overall level of competition and therefore the average profitability you can expect. This is absolutely critical. The first force is the threat of new entrants. This simply means, how easy is it for a new competitor to show up and start taking your customers? If the barriers to entry are low, then the threat is high. For our coffee shop, the barriers are relatively low. You need a location, an espresso machine, some beans, and a business license. It's not easy, but it's not like starting a car company. When new people can easily enter your market, it puts a cap on how much profit everyone can make. If you start making a ton of money, someone else will notice, set up shop across the street, and try to get a piece of that action. This increased competition will likely drive prices down for everyone. An industry with high barriers to entry, on the other hand, is a much nicer place to be. Think about the pharmaceutical industry. To launch a new drug, you need billions of dollars for research and development, years of clinical trials, and approval from government agencies. The patents on those drugs give you a legal monopoly for a period of time. The barriers to entry are colossal. That's why that industry can be so profitable. The threat of a new entrant showing up overnight with a competing drug is virtually zero. As an investor, you should love industries with high barriers to entry. The second force is the bargaining power of buyers. In simple terms, how much power do your customers have to demand lower prices or better quality? If your buyers have a lot of power, they can squeeze your profit margins. This happens when there are many companies selling a similar product, and the customer can easily switch from one to another. Let's go back to our coffee shop. If there are 5 other coffee shops on the same block, a customer's bargaining power is high. If they think your latte is 50 cents too expensive, they can just walk next door. They have plenty of options. Now, consider a situation where a company has immense power over its customers. Think about your local electricity provider. Can you haggle with them over the price per kilowatt hour? Of course not. You have one option. Your bargaining power as a buyer is essentially zero. A classic business example is Walmart's relationship with its suppliers. Walmart is the buyer. Because Walmart buys in such mind-boggling quantities, it has enormous power over the companies that sell products to it. It can dictate terms, demand lower prices, and essentially squeeze the profit margins of its suppliers. When you analyze a company, always ask, who has the power in this relationship, the company or its customers? The third force is the bargaining power of suppliers. This is the flip side of the coin. How much power do the people who sell you your raw materials, components, or labor have to raise their prices? If your suppliers have a lot of power, they can eat into your profits by charging you more for the things you need to run your business. For our coffee shop, who are the suppliers? The coffee bean growers, the dairy farms, the company that makes the paper cups, and your employees, the baristas. If there's only one farm in the entire region that grows the specific high-altitude organic coffee bean that your customers love, that farmer has a lot of power. They can raise their prices, and you'll probably have to pay up, cutting into your profits. A powerful real-world example is Microsoft in the 1990s. It was the supplier of the Windows operating system to all the PC manufacturers like Dell, HP, and Compaq. These companies had to have Windows on their computers to sell them. Microsoft was the only game in town for a mainstream PC operating system. This gave Microsoft immense bargaining power, allowing them to charge high prices for the software and capture a huge chunk of the value created by the entire personal computer industry. The fourth force is the threat of substitute products or services. Now, this one is tricky and often misunderstood. A substitute is not a direct competitor. It's a different way of solving the customer's problem. For our coffee shop, a direct competitor is another coffee shop. A substitute is a can of Red Bull, a cup of tea made at home, a 5-hour energy shot, or even just taking a quick nap. The customer isn't just thinking, where can I buy coffee? They're thinking, how can I get an energy boost to get through my afternoon? The more available and affordable substitutes there are, the less pricing power the entire coffee industry has. If the price of coffee goes up too much, people might just start switching to energy drinks en masse. This is arguably the most dangerous force because it often comes from outside your industry and can completely blindside you. Think about what happened to the horse and buggy industry. Their substitute wasn't a better horse, it was the automobile. For traditional taxi services, the substitute wasn't just another cab company, it was a completely new service model from Uber and Lyft, which used an app and private cars. Always ask yourself, what could make my entire product category obsolete? And finally, the fifth force is rivalry among existing competitors. This is the one we think of most often. How intense is the fight between the companies that are already in the industry? Is it a polite, gentlemanly competition? Or is it a brutal, no-holds-barred street fight? In some industries, rivalry is low. The companies might have their own niches and avoid stepping on each other's toes. In other industries, it's a total bloodbath. Think of the airline industry. They are constantly competing on price. One airline lowers its fare from New York to Los Angeles, and within hours, all the others have to match it. This intense price rivalry destroys profitability for everyone involved. The rivalry is usually more intense when there are many competitors of similar size, when industry growth is slow, or when the product is a commodity with little to distinguish it besides price. The Cola Wars between Coca-Cola and Pepsi are a classic example of intense rivalry, fought with massive advertising budgets and promotions. When rivalry is fierce, companies spend all their potential profit on competing with each other, which is great for consumers, but terrible for investors. So those are the 5 forces: threat of new entrants, power of buyers, power of suppliers, threat of substitutes, and rivalry. When you look at an industry through this lens, you start to understand its attractiveness. An attractive industry is one where the forces are weak: high barriers to entry, low buyer power, low supplier power, few substitutes, and polite rivalry. That's a recipe for high profits. An unattractive industry, like the airline industry, has strong forces on all fronts. Okay, so that's how we analyze an industry. But what about the companies within it? This brings us to Porter's second major contribution: the 3 generic strategies. Porter argued that once you understand the industry structure, you have to make a choice about how your company will compete. He said there are only 3 ways to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. And here's the kicker: you have to choose one. Trying to do a little bit of everything is, in his view, a recipe for disaster. The first generic strategy is cost leadership. This is simple to understand, but very hard to execute. The goal is to become the lowest cost producer in your industry. This doesn't necessarily mean you have the lowest prices, though you often do. It means your internal costs of creating and delivering your product or service are lower than anyone else's. A cost leader is obsessed with efficiency. They achieve this through things like massive scale, proprietary technology, preferential access to raw materials, or incredibly lean operational processes. They are relentless in driving costs out of every part of their business. The classic example of a cost leader is Walmart. Sam Walton built the entire company around one idea: offering customers the lowest possible prices. They achieved this through a revolutionary logistics and supply chain system, immense buying power that squeezed suppliers, and a no-frills store experience. They didn't just sell cheap, they were built cheap. Another great example is the budget airline Ryanair in Europe. They are fanatical about costs. They fly one type of plane, the Boeing 737, to minimize maintenance and training costs. They fly to smaller, secondary airports where landing fees are cheaper. They charge for everything from checked bags to printing a boarding pass at the airport. It might not be a luxurious experience, but by being the absolute cost leader, they can offer fares that other airlines can't touch, and they are consistently one of the most profitable airlines in the world. To be a successful cost leader, you need to be willing to serve a broad market and focus on volume. Your profit margin on each individual sale might be thin as a razor, but you make up for it by selling an enormous amount. The risk? A new competitor might come along with a new technology or business model that allows them to be even cheaper. Or, in your obsession with cost, you might cut quality so much that customers are no longer willing to buy your product at any price. The second generic strategy is differentiation. If you're not going to be the cheapest, you have to be different. The goal of differentiation is to offer a product or service that is perceived as unique and valuable by customers, for reasons other than just price. Because your offering is special, customers are willing to pay a premium for it. This uniqueness can come from many places. It could be the quality of the product, like a Rolex watch. It could be the brand image and marketing, like Nike. It could be the technology and design, like Apple. It could be the customer service, like at a Four Seasons hotel. The key is that the customer believes they are getting something extra that is worth paying more for. Think about Starbucks. When they started, coffee was just a cheap commodity you could get at any diner for $1. Starbucks differentiated the experience. They created a third place between home and work, with comfortable chairs, music, and a specific ambiance. They gave the drinks fancy Italian names. They focused on the quality and origin of the beans. People are not paying $5 for a Starbucks latte because it's the cheapest caffeine delivery system. They are paying for the whole package. The consistency, the brand, the experience. Apple is perhaps the ultimate differentiator. For years, their computers were more expensive than Windows PCs with similar specifications. But people paid the premium for Apple's superior design, ease of use, and the powerful ecosystem of software and services. The Apple brand itself is a massive differentiator that commands incredible loyalty and pricing power. A successful differentiator needs to invest heavily in research and development, marketing, and creating a strong brand. The risk is that what makes you unique gets copied by competitors, or customers might decide that the unique feature you offer is no longer worth the premium price. For instance, if a competitor can offer a product that is 95% as good for only 60% of the price, many of your customers might switch. Now for the third generic strategy, which is called focus. This is a bit different. A company pursuing a focus strategy doesn't try to serve the entire market. Instead, it selects a narrow segment of the market, a specific niche, and tailors its strategy to serve that segment exclusively. The idea is to serve this small group of customers better than anyone else who is trying to serve the broad market. A focus strategy has two variants. You can have a cost focus or a differentiation focus. Let's break that down. With cost focus, you aim to be the low-cost leader, but only within your narrow target segment. You're not trying to be the cheapest in the entire industry, just the cheapest for your specific niche. For example, imagine a furniture company that only makes and sells unassembled desks for college dorm rooms. They aren't competing with high-end furniture stores. By focusing only on this one product for this one type of customer, they can optimize their entire operation to be the absolute lowest cost provider of dorm desks. With differentiation focus, you aim to be unique and special, but again, only for a specific niche. You create a highly differentiated product for a small group of customers with particular needs. Think of a car company like Ferrari. They don't try to sell cars to everyone. They focus on a tiny segment of extremely wealthy individuals who want a high-performance, exclusive sports car. Everything about Ferrari, its design, its engineering, its brand, is tailored to delighting this very specific niche, which allows them to charge astronomical prices. A great example of a focus strategy is a law firm that specializes only in intellectual property law for biotechnology startups. They aren't a general practice firm. They are the absolute experts in one very specific, complex area. A biotech company would gladly pay a premium for that specialized expertise over a general firm that only dabbles in patent law. The risk of a focus strategy is that your niche might be too small to be profitable, or it might disappear over time. Another risk is that a large competitor serving the broad market might decide that your niche is attractive and use its massive resources to come in and attack you. So we have cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Porter was very clear on this. The worst place to be is stuck in the middle. A company that is stuck in the middle hasn't made a clear choice. It tries to be a little bit of everything. It tries to be low cost, but its products aren't cheap enough to compete with the true cost leaders. It tries to be differentiated, but its products aren't unique enough to command a real price premium. These companies lack a clear identity. Their culture is confused. Their processes are inefficient. They try to appeal to everyone and end up appealing to no one. Think of a grocery store that isn't as cheap as a hard discounter like Aldi, but also doesn't have the high-quality selection and experience of a premium grocer like Whole Foods. It's just there. It has no compelling reason for a customer to choose it. In Porter's view, companies that are stuck in the middle are almost guaranteed to have low profitability. They are getting squeezed from both sides. The cost leaders will win the price-sensitive customers, and the differentiators will win the customers who are willing to pay more for quality or features. The company in the middle gets the leftover customers, and its margins are constantly under pressure. Many legacy companies, like some old department store chains, found themselves stuck in the middle, unable to compete with both discount retailers and specialized boutiques. So, how do we tie all this back to being a smart investor? This framework isn't just an academic exercise for business school students. It is an incredibly practical tool for analyzing potential investments. When you're looking at a company, first use the 5 forces to analyze the industry it operates in. Is this a structurally profitable industry, or is it a Shark Tank where everyone is fighting over scraps? You want to invest in companies that operate in attractive industries with weak competitive forces. Warren Buffett famously talks about investing in businesses with a moat around them. Porter's 5 forces model is the best tool for identifying the size and strength of that moat. For example, look at a company like Moody's or Standard & Poor's, the credit rating agencies. The threat of new entrants is incredibly low due to regulations and the established reputation you need. The buyers, companies that need a rating, and the bond investors who rely on the rating are locked in, giving the agencies pricing power. There are no real substitutes for a credit rating, and the rivalry is an oligopoly, not a price war. It's a textbook example of a structurally attractive industry. After you've analyzed the industry, you need to look at the company's specific strategy. Has it made a clear choice to be a cost leader, a differentiator, or a focuser? Can you clearly articulate its competitive advantage? If you can't, that's a huge red flag. The company might be stuck in the middle. Let's analyze a few well-known companies using this lens. Take Costco. What is their strategy? It's pure, unadulterated cost leadership. They offer a limited selection of items in bulk, which gives them enormous buying power over suppliers. Their stores are bare-bones warehouses to keep overhead low. The membership fee creates a loyal customer base and a steady revenue stream. They have a deep, sustainable cost advantage. Now, consider Tiffany & Company. Their strategy is clearly differentiation. They sell jewelry and luxury goods. The value is not just in the silver and diamonds. It's in the brand, the heritage, and that iconic little blue box. People pay a significant premium for the Tiffany name, which represents quality, elegance, and status. They are not competing on price. They are competing on brand perception. What about a company pursuing a focused strategy? Think of a company like a specialized medical device manufacturer that makes only artificial hip joints. They are using a differentiation-focused strategy. They aren't trying to make all medical devices. They are focused on being the absolute best, most innovative, and most trusted provider of hip joints for orthopedic surgeons and their patients, a very specific niche. By applying this framework, you move beyond just looking at a company's stock price or its recent earnings report. You start to understand the underlying economics of the business. You can ask the right questions. What is the source of this company's competitive advantage? Is that advantage sustainable? What could disrupt it? Could a new technology make the cost leader's advantage obsolete? Could a shift in consumer tastes make the differentiator's brand less relevant? This framework also helps you spot value traps. A company might look cheap based on its price-to-earnings ratio, but if you analyze it and realize it operates in a terrible industry and is stuck in the middle with no competitive advantage, you'll understand that it's probably cheap for a very good reason. It has no way to defend its profitability over the long term. Ultimately, Michael Porter's work gives us a structured way to think about the messy, chaotic world of business. Strategy is about making hard choices and trade-offs. You can't be all things to all people. A company must decide where it will play and how it will win. As an investor, your job is to find the companies that have chosen a clear strategy, built a durable competitive advantage based on that choice, and operate in an industry that allows them to turn that advantage into sustainable profits. It's not a crystal ball, but it's a powerful map for navigating the complex terrain of the market. The next time you walk into a store or use a service, try to look at it through Porter's lens. Ask yourself, what is their strategy? Who are their real competitors? Who has the power in this industry? You'll start to see the business world with a whole new level of clarity.